fabled heat, where magic meets desire. Subscribe to ignite the fantasy.
As I stood in the library, surrounded by the musty scent of old books and the faint hint of wood polish, the thunder outside seemed to rattle the very foundations of the building. The windows, tall and narrow, vibrated with each clap, casting eerie shadows on the walls. But I was oblivious to the storm's fury, my senses consumed by the two men standing before me. Cale's eyes, a deep, piercing blue, seemed to burn with an inner fire, his presence both captivating and unnerving. The scent of bergamot wafted from his skin, a citrusy aroma that stirred a hunger deep within me, a hunger that had nothing to do with food. Thane, on the other hand, exuded an air of quiet confidence, his eyes a piercing gray that seemed to see right through me. The smell of salt and steel clung to him, a dangerous edge that both frightened and thrilled me. I felt like a small boat adrift in a stormy sea, torn between the two men who stood before me, each one pulling me in a different direction. Cale's kiss was a slow exploration, a deliberate claiming that stole my breath. His lips, soft and gentle, brushed against mine, sending shivers down my spine. My fingers tightened on his shoulders, a small, defiant gesture as if I could somehow anchor myself to reality. "You think a promise is enough," I managed, my voice a breathless whisper, the words tumbling out of my mouth like a challenge. Thane's hands circled my waist, drawing me back against his hard length, his fingers tracing the curve of my hip. A shiver ran through me, a delicious tremor of anticipation as I felt his warmth seep into my skin. I should pull away, I told myself, I should remind them who held the power. But my body seemed to have a mind of its own, arching into their touch, craving more. A low moan escaped my lips before I could stop it, a sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep within me. Cale's growl was a possessive rumble, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Such a pretty sound," he breathed, his voice low and husky. "Let's hear it again." I felt a flush rise to my cheeks as Thane's fingers danced across my skin, sending sparks of pleasure through my body. The air was thick with tension, the storm outside seeming to mirror the turmoil that raged within me. And then, just as it seemed like things were about to spiral out of control, the scent of ozone filled the air, a flash of lightning illuminating the room. Riker's voice, cold and hard, cut through the darkness, a voice that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at the same time. "Enough," he said, the single word a command that seemed to freeze time itself. The room seemed to hold its breath, the only sound the heavy breathing of the three men and the distant rumble of thunder. I felt like I was suspended in a state of limbo, unsure of what would happen next, unsure of what I wanted to happen next. The storm outside seemed to be raging on, but inside, a different kind of storm was brewing, one that threatened to consume me whole. As I stood there, trapped between the two men, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held and whether I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The darkness seemed to press in around me, a physical presence that seemed to have a life of its own. I felt a shiver run down my spine as Cale's eyes seemed to bore into my soul, his gaze a burning intensity that seemed to leave me breathless. Thane's hands, still wrapped around my waist, seemed to be the only thing holding me upright, the only thing keeping me from tumbling into the abyss. And then, as suddenly as it had started, everything seemed to stop. The storm outside seemed to fade into the distance, the thunder growing fainter, the lightning ceasing to flash. The room was silent, the only sound the heavy breathing of the three men. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take, unsure of what lay ahead. The darkness seemed to press in around me, a physical presence that seemed to have a life of its own. I knew that I had to make a choice, but I had no idea what that choice would be. All I knew was that I had to take a step forward into the unknown and see where it would lead me. As I stood there, frozen in uncertainty, I felt a hand on my shoulder, a gentle touch that seemed to spark a flame within me. It was Cale, his eyes burning with an inner fire, his presence both captivating and unnerving. "We'll give you time," he said, his voice low and husky. "But know this, we'll be back, and next time you won't be so lucky." The words seemed to hang in the air, a challenge, a promise, a threat. I felt a shiver run down my spine as Thane's hands dropped away from my waist, leaving me feeling cold and alone. The room seemed to be spinning around me, a vortex of emotions that seemed to pull me in a dozen different directions. I knew that I had to make a choice, but I had no idea what that choice would be. All I knew was that I had to take a step forward into the unknown and see where it would lead me. The darkness seemed to press in around me, a physical presence that seemed to have a life of its own. I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring into the abyss, unsure of what lay ahead, but I knew that I had to take that step, no matter how terrifying it seemed. I took a deep breath, the air filling my lungs, and stepped forward into the unknown. The room seemed to fade away, the storm outside growing fainter, the thunder ceasing to rumble. I felt like I was walking into a dream, a world of uncertainty, a world of possibility. And as I walked, the darkness seemed to recede, the light growing brighter, illuminating a path that seemed to stretch out before me. I knew that I would have to face whatever lay ahead, but I was ready to take on the world, ready to take on myself. The journey ahead would be long and difficult, but I was ready to face whatever challenges came my way. And as I walked, the darkness seemed to fade away, the light growing brighter, illuminating a future that seemed to stretch out before me like a promise.